Hey everyone, super excited to be talking with Quinn Cooper about his experience with Glo Tanning. Quinn, can we jump into your background? What were you doing before Glo?
Yeah, so question there. I'm also excited to be with Ben. Appreciate the time. Um, I was 10 years in financial consulting and kind of financial sales there. I worked at Goldman Sachs, or I started Fidelity. I worked at Goldman Sachs for a few years. Then I most recently worked at Charles Schwab before I came on to Glo, first as a franchisee, and then I quit my full-time job to do franchise like on the corporate side as well as a franchisee. So I kind of wear two hats now.
And you have two stores. You're about to open your third here in the coming months. So you are in, man. You're invested into tanning, which is so funny.
Yeah,
Go from financial planning to tanning.
absolutely.
So what was the connection there? Why'd you take the leap?
Yeah, so actually it's personal, right? Ani and I are friends from college. So we met my freshman year of college. We kind of hung out there. He had already moved. So even though we are college friends, we didn't go to college together. So he had
Okay.
moved to Fayetteville. I was still at my college in Batesville, Arkansas. And so we just became friends. We hung out together, kind of group of friends. And then one day he texted the group and was like, hey, I'm opening a tanning salon. And and anyone that's listening is, if you don't know yet, Ani's a large African, literally African guy. So naturally, I'm also black as well, as you can see. So we were like, you don't know anything about Ted, like what
Yep.
what's the logic, what's the standpoint there. And so he was actually bodybuilding at the time, so he owned a nutrition shop, and he was like, I own this nutrition shop, it's next to the tanning salon. People are going in here gangbusters, like the lady's looking to sell. It just makes sense. I'm going to try it and see what happens, right? And so it kind of started from there, and so that was my first introduction to tanning. Period. I would have never thought to look at tanning as a business, or even I would have driven by and never even noticed it because it's just not on my radar because it's not something that
Yeah.
I consume.
Did you have any reservations from the time, that you found out about it 15 years ago, obviously till you jumped in? There's quite a big gap there. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I did. So I think probably the initial, I would say this is very early on, like 6 or 12 months into it. There was a huge news article that came out, and not even a news article, like it's a whole news story by Anderson Cooper on primetime CNN, and it was like tanning causes cancer and all these things like this, and how tanning causes skin cancer. And I remember talking to Ani about it. My friend, he's a big lawyer now. They're in mergers and acquisitions, and he was like, "Hey, like this is a bad like." This is the death of the tanning industry, essentially.
Yeah.
Was kind of how it was built, and so we were like, hey, like any reasonable friend would do to protect your friends, like, hey, get out of it now, like run for the hills, right? And he's like,
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it, right? He has a resolve, a steel resolve. So, but fast forward, 15 years later, he ended up being right, right? Like the studies came out at a period of time, after this happened, there's a decline in tanning overall. I think, multiple causes there, but tanning overall decreased, bed tanning decreased, the amount of tanning salons decreased, then also the amount of SPF and sunscreen increased significantly, and there was no reduction in skin cancer. So everyone started using sunscreen, blocking the sun rays. Everyone stopped tanning. There, no change. Then also during that time, there's never been a tanning salon that lost a class action, lost any lawsuit or any time cancer related in that time period. So kind of proved out in the end that there's no silver bullet. Like I'm
Yeah.
not a scientist. I'm not gonna quote anything magical there, but essentially the causation and the correlation didn't match up. And then actually positive news in 2020, with COVID and everything like that, there started to be more studies around the positive things of tanning salons and UV rays, seasonal depression, vitamin D, all these different things. So now the last 4 years, there's been a 4 to 5% uptick in tanning. So we were here, we went there, now we're back going in this direction there. And
Yeah, I saw the growth rate's like a solid 5%, It's
mhm.
pretty standard for a good industry that's been around for quite a while. Anyways, thanks for going into the cancer thing because I thought the same thing. But it is, it's like, well, how long has tanning beds been around?
Yeah.
Decades on decades, and
Mhm.
were the lawsuits, right? Like where's
Yeah.
the money going and where's the
Hmm.
proof? And
I
it
see
looks like
it,
it's
asbestos ads and all the stuff like that all the time, right? If you
yeah,
mess with thelioma or whatever it is, it's always there, right? But it doesn't
yep.
matter because in tanning, it just didn't. That didn't happen.
Yeah. Talk to me about how you got your first store because now you're at three, or you're almost at three stores. But yeah, let's
Hmm.
talk store one, store two, and then store three.
Yeah, so store one, it was I would say about a year long process. I personally got interested in around 2020, but again, the franchising had just started there. They weren't even SBA approved, so it's like I asked, he was like, "You need 500K in cash." I said, "Okay, well, I don't have that, so I'll talk
Yeah.
to you later," right? And then so that was very easy there, and so but we kind of kept having conversation. Then again, as the franchising grew, as things got better, then they got SBA approved. They got this, and he said, "Hey, like now it's 20% of 500 instead of
Yeah.
instead of that." I said, "Okay, that's doable. That's reasonable." So then the opportunity came up to purchase my first store. It was actually an acquisition, so I didn't know
Okay.
build out, know anything like that. I acquired the store, which has some positives and some negatives there. So that, and then I ended up acquiring a second store in, I want to say late 2023, maybe early 2024. So around that time, I acquired the second store. So my first two stores were acquisition of other tanning salons. Now my third store will
Mhm.
be my first one that I can kind of start from beginning to end, right? And I can kind of it's like my baby there. I can control every single thing, and so I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. What are the pros and cons versus opening one versus building one from the ground up? And I know we spoke a little bit right before, um,
Mm-hmm.
that it's typically less money to buy one,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also buying, who's selling it, what's the price? It's typically low
Yeah.
price because it's not profitable and all of that. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, pros and cons of acquiring versus starting from the ground up.
Yeah. So personally, I like going through what I've done, knowing what I know. I would prefer 90% of the time to build new. The only time that I would purchase is if it's a one is an existing Glo and the franchisee is looking to get out. Typically because they're tired, they ran their race and the salon is profitable. I know it's following the system and it's been approved
Mhm.
by the network there. But the biggest issue with purchasing a salon is you purchase the location there. So I can't control. So Glo has a really good system on controlling the rent, controlling the location, visibility. So my first store was a beautiful store. Actually, it was really well made. It was everything was excellent there, but it was interior facing. It had no street signage. It was just hard to find. It was in a busy shopping center, and it was really expensive because it was in a premium shopping center, but impossible to find inside said premium shopping center, right? So
Yeah.
then the marketing, then you just have to work so much harder when you because those things you can't control. I can't take the salon and well, I can because I actually did physically move it to a new the location after we figured out. We put in the work, we put in the effort, we did everything that we can control, and we said that we either have to spend a ton of money on marketing, or we get the visibility that we need from the stores, and we open where we would have opened initially if we would have came into the market fresh.
And how long did you have it open before you moved that first store?
So it was open for as a Glo for around 9 to 9 months, I would say there. So now within 3 months we started looking for a new location because we quickly figured out, it was growing, but the issues, and then that's a good thing about customers. Customers will complain; they'll tell you exactly the issue. They'll say, "I hate walking from the parking garage over here," or
Yeah.
they're like, I couldn't find you. It took me forever to find this location. I hate it, and like so that feedback was very well received. And this, you can extrapolate that to the amount of people that are also not coming because of this. So what we did is we started looking for a location. We found a location, then we built out the location. So then we moved in 9 months total there, and it made a huge difference. Just from a better location, and also from a financial standpoint, reducing the amount of rent. We cut the rent in half, and we purchased a larger space, and that goes the difference between someone else negotiating your lease and Glo negotiating your lease, and Glo picking the site selection because you're going to have that type of scenario.
So you became a franchisee. and quickly realized like, hey, this location, I could get a better location, especially if the rent's so high. It was really like, it's not worth
Mm-hmm.
$12,000 in rent, right? Let's move
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
I've never heard of another franchisor identifying that and saying, hey, let's move your spot. I'm going to put time, energy, and effort. Did you pay a second franchise fee for Ani to negotiate your second? Of course not,
No.
right? Like he did it for free. For him to,
No.
I mean, I'm assuming he didn't ask, but I know who he
Mm-hmm.
is. Um, I'm not seeing that support with other franchisors, and the owners are like, hey, I will do all the extra work and let's move your location to so you can be
Mm-hmm.
successful.
Yeah.
And we can get into that a little bit more in the story on the second one. But I think that overall, it's like, how do you have zero closures after with 100 locations at 15 years in business? It's that,
Yeah.
right? It's somebody
Mm-hmm.
that's willing, an owner willing to not only, you know, provide the normal support, but go above and beyond and say, hey, this isn't working out. Let's find a solution for you. Which, again, let's tell me about this second location because I know you acquired that from an existing Glow franchise that really he had his own salon, converted it to a Glow, but never really converted it, right? Through the name and just wasn't really following the system, wasn't a good fit. But instead of, letting it fail or whatever, again, Ani finding solutions connected you guys. Is that all accurate?
So, kind of. So, I think to your point there on the first initiative, I think that the easiest and simple solution was problem solving. Right? We would meet once a month or say like, "Hey, how's the store going? Are you seeing increased traffic? Have you tried this?" Right? So it wasn't just like, "Oh, we're going to move the store." It was like, "Try this, try this, try this." And then they say, and then again, it goes back to the franchisee input. Everything he told me to do, I literally went out and did it. Right? I said, "Okay." Then I came back. What else can I do? Because I want to see this succeed. And so it was a
Yeah.
collaboration. So that's the biggest thing. So with the second location, that was essentially the issue was the lack of collaboration. So ironically enough, the second location, I was supposed to purchase that as my first location.
Okay.
So he was another franchise. And so we were going through the process of purchasing that salon, and he kind of got cold feet and he said, "I'm not ready to sell. I think I can do this. I would rather become a Glow than sell to Glow," which is fine, right? So that happened. So that
Yeah.
happened, and he just never committed because the issue was the effort, right? He
Hmm.
essentially wanted to be absentee. He just was not in the salon ever. He had another job. He just wasn't committed to it. So he changed the name on the salon. He changed a couple of equipment. Like he was like no offense, like I love him. He's a great guy, actually, perfect guy. So there, but it was things like I went in there. They were selling like CBD oils, and like they were selling, just anything they could get their hands on, to try to make a
Yeah.
dollar. Right? It was just one of those things. It was an esthetician
Rather than
performing
just follow the
services.
system.
Yeah, it was an esthetician performing the services in one room. Right? It was mayhem. Right?
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
so and it just wasn't working, and he couldn't figure out, and he was trying to figure out how to make a quick buck instead of following the system. And so then
Yeah.
I acquired that one. We did some renovation. We made it a Glow. And then so and this salon is they're actually on the same street, 7 miles from each other. So it was a strategic play to get both of these and kind of secure that area so that I'm not being cannibalized by another salon on my revenue.
Um, and then where's the third location going in relationship?
So the third location is going to be a new market. So it's Tyler, Texas, around an hour and a half from Dallas there. So we actually have an employee program. So an employee there is moving to Tyler, and she's going to eventually be a co-owner with me. And so we're going to build out the Tyler, and there's another area that we've already identified. So her and I have a plan to kind of grow. And that was another thing that I want to take advantage of is that opportunity to grow by investing in other people as well.
Yeah, and I would love to get into it more right now, but I recorded a video with Ani going over that owners program, and it is so
Mhm.
cool. And so it sounds like I didn't know that you have employees that are going through that and are going
Mhm.
to be part owners
Yeah.
with you. How
Mhm.
cool to see. I mean, man, that's life changing. You hire somebody 15 bucks an hour, and in a few years they're a part owner in a very well ran tanning salon. So that's super cool. You're opening up a store an hour and a half away. You already have two stores, and you run a 9 to 5. Now, glow tanning is not a side hustle, right? At least not at the beginning. So talk to me about that. Like, how can somebody look at you and like, well, you have a 9 to 5, and you run two glow tannings, and you're about to open up a third. How are you shuffling it all? How do we recommend new friends grow as far as the balance of how much time I'm going to put in myself versus, delegation?
question. So in the beginning, I mean, I can't be fired now, so I'll be transparent. I was half-assing my other job. So I was working like 10 to 3. I would take off. Like I could set my own schedule pretty much. So I would set meetings around what I need to do at Glow. And then if I needed to, I would just call in. I would just be like, hey, I'm sick. And then I would go work at Glow. Like there were several times where I worked 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. at my other job and just called in sick. And then
Yeah.
also my wife helped out a ton, so she would do the same. So we had like that kind of investment there where we could, kind of be in both places. And then also like my phone would be ringing constantly, so I'm like trying to juggle two things. So I was working at that point probably realistically 85 to 90 hours a week. That first year in 2023.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna ask, talking to, somebody looking at getting a Glow franchise, what is the advice that you give them as far, do you keep the 9 to 5 and just kill yourself working like you did, or would the recommendation be like, no, you go in full time, after a year you can get it up to speed, and then you can either expand to your other businesses or keep opening glows? What's kind of that advice, because you've gone through
Yeah,
it?
so my advice, everyone's different, right? So whatever your situation is, if I could do it again and I could prepare, I would have done Glow 100% of the time, right? Because it took me longer to get to where I am now because I was, juggling both. I was 2 feet in two different
Yeah.
pots, right? So I was trying to do this full time. I was trying to worry about this and do that. Now I also wasn't in a position where I could do that. So again, everything kind of happened quickly. If I would have been better prepared, I would have done full time Glow because
Yeah.
um, the biggest thing that I learned is just literally like, especially that first year, working behind the counter, being in the salon, you learn so much just from being so hands on. Now, conversely, you need to transition out of the salon eventually there, but those first, especially those first 3 months, as much as you can be in the salon, the better, right? I worked pretty much every weekend, every Saturday and Sunday. I would be in the salon every week, no matter what. And then probably 1 to 2 times a week during the week there. So
Yeah, it's important to know the business inside and out before you can start delegating it. Because I tried that. I
mm,
bought a cookie company. I lived in California. It was in Arizona, and I got all sorts of like, oh, the cookies are ruined because we chopped the butter versus slicing it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I had to go figure it out. Like, just work in the store to know when my when the employees were bullshitting me or not. But man, I
yeah,
couldn't agree with. I mean, I'm learning a ton about tanning just by visiting the competitors while I'm looking for my glow tanning space
mm,
here in Utah,
yeah,
visiting all of that. So I love the hands-on, and I mean, I would give the same recommendation. Anytime you go into something, trying to do two things at once is pretty hard,
it's
right?
super difficult. Yeah. And I had two people, right? And so it was me and my wife full time. And so, but, at Glow, we have a saying that we tell all of our managers, leaders, everything like that. We tell them, people only respect what you inspect. If you can't kind of hold me accountable for it, then if given the opportunity, I'm not going to do it, right? It just makes sense to me.
Yeah. You had a 9 to 5 working for these Fortune 500 companies, um, and now you're jumping into actually having like kind of the freedom, I guess, of the business ownership. But what's the difference between, working for uh, Goldman Sachs and being a franchise owner?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is just like you said, the ownership, right? I have control of it. If I have an idea, it's not no, right? Because
Yeah.
like again, Goldman Sachs didn't become Goldman Sachs by listening to me, right? No offense, right? But and then also like in my industry, financial planning, you have a ton of people that take that route and eventually go into their own business, right? So business ownership was always kind of in the back of my mind. Like this is probably where I'm going to end up. The question was how and what, right? So it was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to, prospect clients? How am I going to find this? How am I going to, all the things that any business owner would come to. And then when the franchising opportunity came up, I started to read more about franchising in general. Then I read more about it made more sense after that.
Yeah. Well, talk to me about franchising in general. What would you say to someone that's looking at buying a franchise, whether it be Glow or anything else?
So I think all ideas are stolen. So I heard this recently and I stole it there, but they said everyone has $1 billion idea. No one cares. It's all about execution, right? How can you
Uh,
execute? How do you actually provide value? How do you get to revenue? How do you earn your first $100, $1,000, $1,000,000, et cetera, and so forth, right? And so with that, that's the biggest benefit of franchising. Someone's already done it. They have a system in place, something that you can follow step by step, process by process. And then the question is, how good is that franchise individually? But the idea of having that support, because like I said, I was thinking about going into financial consulting, right? So I can open up with all these different places, have these different relationships. So almost like franchising in that space. I was already kind of familiar with the idea of doing that and already familiar with the pros and cons. It was just kind of, instead of selling tanning lotion or mutual funds, I get to choose, right? This one's a little bit more fun, a little bit less stressful.
Yes. So if someone is looking at a franchise, then, and I like that because it's like, okay, I'm a great marketer, so let me start a marketing business, but I have no idea how to do bookkeeping, right? I don't know how to do the legal structures. Do I know about taxes? I don't know, So it's like thing when you buy into the correct franchise system, at least in my view, it allows you to hyper focus on what you're good at. Like if you're the marketer or whatever it is, or the customer service, like you focus on that because the other support's already there for all of these other items. So it's a lot easier to jump in because it's figured out. But how do you vet a franchise? So I'm looking at 10 franchises. What am I looking for? Because they all say that they're the best, right?
So the numbers, right? Me and a lot of women, a lot of numbers down. So that's the first thing I'm looking at. As an investor, I've just personally, I've looked at thousands of businesses, franchises, corporate, doesn't matter. I've had to evaluate business. I look at P&L statements, and then for a franchise, it's your item 19, right? So
Hmm.
what is the year over year return? What is the percentage? What's the profitability there? And then, so I personally want high margin businesses. I don't care if I make $10 million gross if I only take home 200,000 net, right? I would much rather make 700,000 gross and take home half of that. So I
Yeah.
look at it from a profit margin standpoint. And then the second thing is looking at it from a scalable standpoint, right? So how did this business grow? Did they grow by selling franchises, or did they grow and then sell franchises? So I've looked at other franchises there. We've actually been to a couple of franchising conventions and stuff like that now that we've grown. And that's one of the biggest things we see is that people get one or two locations like, okay, I want to start a franchise. I want to sell this to other people, but you haven't proven the concept in different markets. There's not enough proof of concept. So me as the investor, I'm concerned that, if I open mine X amount of miles away and the other 14 franchisees are doing great, perfectly, but they may have a skill set, they may have resource, they may have something that I don't have. Where corporate, I know if I follow the corporate system and it's built out, I should get the corporate results.
Yeah.
Franchisees are, it's a mixture, right? They may be in a market where they have 200 customers to their local celebrity, right? And I'm not, and I would have never known that because the franchisees all look successful and they're all, pseudo celebrities in their
Yeah.
area.
Um, they could be selling CBD oil, right?
Yeah,
That's
they
so.
could be, they could be doing anything in their own locations, right? Because I mean, even within Glow and things like that, a business is a business. If you own it, it's your doors. We can't come kick your doors in and drag you out of there, right? So
Yeah.
anything can happen in a franchisee location.
Awesome. Well, Quinn, I've really appreciated your time. I have one more question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot. Just first thing that comes to mind.
Mhm.
What is your favorite part of being a Glow franchisee?
Honestly, yeah. So I would say it's kind of a savvy, but it's true, right? It's the people, right? It's the community. So like working at large companies, you feel like you're in a large company, right? Coming to Glow, it felt like a community. I have several franchisees' phone number. We go to Glowvention. We have things like that. We've been to events and other things like that, and we can share ideas. We can collaborate. We're all kind of in the trenches together, and it feels like that we're solving problems. We're connecting with each other, and it feels like that, even though I'm my own business owner, I have a community behind me. And then
Yep.
that also extends to the employees as well. Like I said, I'm opening with an employee. We have a great relationship. She's come in. I've had several employees that come in that they're fantastic, right? And so having that one-on-one connection with other business owners, with everyone kind of walking the walk, talking the talk, doing the same thing. And so if I have an issue, I can call Diana, I can call Riley, I can call and say, hey, I'm dealing with this. How do you fix this, right? I know you spoke with John, one of our franchisees.
Everybody's
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only been in the system like meeting people for a month, and everybody's just willing to jump on a call. And then John's,
Mhm.
he's like, give my number out to anybody. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I love
Hmm.
talking to, and he's a, existing franchisee, and everybody's been like that. So I couldn't agree with you
Yeah.
more on the community. I've already started feeling that. I'm excited to go to Glovention and the Mavericks game with you guys here in a few
Yeah.
weeks. All right, Quinn, this has been amazing. Thank you for your time. Excited to see your future growth and grow alongside you. I got my Utah stores coming soon.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you soon, Ben. Have a great one.